I talk about this so much though, Bryce, because this is an epidemic. This is my demographic, brothers, people that we bleed, sweat, and put so much time in. But then conversely, during retirement, you see guys who can barely feed their family and going through divorce and going through all this financial turmoil when they had it all. And most of the people that was taking percentages off them, they can't even call for $5,000 if they need a loan. That's like that hits you here, especially when you have a network, you have the intelligence to do something about it. It actually hits you right here. Bryce, thanks for having me. It's been a little too long. What it's been, what, 2, 3 years? Absolutely. And the reason why I attack these things the way that I do is because all throughout my playing career, I always heard how difficult it was for athletes when they retired in the transitional phase. And I was always mentally preparing myself for the day when I had to hang up the cleats and figure it out. So I really just wanted to take all those characteristics that I learned from playing in the NFL, from playing under some tremendous coaches and learning from them in college under Jim Tressel and Mark D'Antonio and Mel Tucker, taking those little tidbits from all of those guys that were known winners and using it when the time prevailed. And it started when I was 16 years old and enrolled at The Ohio State University. 16. The Ohio State University. Well, first of all, it's the education. We have high character individuals, majority. It's the prestige behind the program, the most first round picks in NCAA history, NFL draft. Even this year, we had the most players drafted from one university. We just won the national championship. I would go as far to say as the Ohio State University deserves the "the," right? But it's not only that, and just referencing what you just said about just working out and being consistent. I always wanted to challenge myself to do things that were hard or other people weren't capable of doing. Not because I wanted to be better than those people, but because I always wanted to challenge myself. Even going back to enrolling at Ohio State at 16 years old, I had to learn how to navigate an entirely different arena than what I was accustomed to growing up in the inner city with all African Americans. Now you get implanted at Ohio State University, you have Chinese, you have Caucasian, you have African American, you have African. You better learn quick or you won't be here. It was a culture shock. But I took that challenge. When I wanted to turn and run back home, I had a supportive group of people that was like, no, you have to stay there and go through the storm. So there's different phases in life, but it's always the same circumstances. Well, I've always had a way of thinking, and I can credit my high school coach, Tegan Sr., with the self belief aspect to everything that I've accomplished. And if you really research some of the greatest self help authors in the history of civilization, like Napoleon Hill, oh, he really speaks about whatever you can truly believe in your mind and can consistently think and believe, and then add emotion on top of work to it, will come to fruition 100% of the time. I was able to accomplish these things subconsciously, not knowing this 20 years ago. So stepping on Ohio State campus, I just did what I've always known to do: work hard, show up early, put the extra time in, and truly believe in myself no matter what the circumstances are. And my business partner now, one of my best friends, James Luthard, we always often talk about what made me believe in that I could make it to the NFL and ultimately be a first round pick. Was there was one day I was a eighth grader and I was playing basketball on a basketball court in the summertime, and I was playing against some rival guys that played football at another school, and they were all talking about what schools they're going to go to, Toledo and Kent, and smaller schools. And they asked me, and I said, "Well, I'm going to Ohio State or University of Miami." And everybody on the basketball court laughed at me hilariously to the point that we had people falling out. Oh, these schools don't recruit around here. Blah 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 blah. I took that and I internalized that. Every time I ran a sprint, every time I lifted, every time I hit somebody in practice, every time I made a call on the field, I saw those kids laughing at me and feeling humiliated, which propelled me to Ohio State. So then you get to Ohio State, they're coming off a national championship. You have players that want to compete, and guys that are older than me, they know I'm coming here for a reason, coming early. So I dealt with sabotage. I dealt with having to navigate Ohio State and the vastness of this campus, the variety of different people, and competing with the national champions coming off a national championship. That was the year they beat Miami. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But every time I went home and laid in my bed, every time I'm playing a video game, the only thing I thought about was beating out the competition at Ohio State and being a first round pick. Stay there a couple of summers, don't go home, put in a little overtime, have true self belief. Miami, Ohio game, roll around first game of the season, run an interception back, and that started the party. A year later, I'm a first round pick. I'm actually a top 10 pick. So then we have to deal with it again in the NFL. So it's always the same circumstances and it repeats itself. It's just different scenarios. Well, first and foremost, I think that when you look at guys like Deion Sanders, when you look at guys like Rich Paul, who's the CFO and CEO of Clutch Sports, and they're really taking over the agent world, what they really have is a relatability with the culture, right? That's what they have. It's not about being the best football coach. It's not about being the best agent. It's about the relatability and understanding where these guys come from. With Shador, some of it could have been manufactured energy to try to get him drafted first round. I don't think he really accomplished a lot versus top level teams in the Big 12. And I think that sometimes you need to be humbled in this matter so that you can really lock in, focus on the main thing, and become the quarterback that you're supposed to become. So I'm a true believer in everything happens for a reason. If he goes first round, his career could possibly turn out a lot differently than it did going fifth round and having to grind your way up instead of taking the elevator. So a lot of times God protects us from ourselves. So he's probably protecting Shador Sanders right now and not having to deal with the immediate pressure, being able to sit behind some veteran quarterbacks, being able to compete with Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon, learn the game like Tom Brady had to sit and learn the game, get with the defensive coaches so you understand the intricacies on both sides of the ball so that you can consistently perform and be an all-time great. Because the best quarterbacks that I ever played against, they weren't first round picks, they weren't second round picks. They were guys that took the small little details, could process in a moment, and get the ball to the right guy, and was a fierce competitor when the time mattered. So that's all that matters for Shador. It's not about the money. He has the money. His father has the money. The family has the money. It's about sitting behind those quarterbacks, understanding that life isn't always fair, but things happen the way that they're supposed to. So I don't worry about him if he takes the game of football seriously and cut out some of the outside antics. Absolutely. Because when you think about the demographic and where most of these guys come from, the educational system was probably a F. So how do you learn how to speak properly, write properly, and use grammatical excellence? It's very difficult. Mhm. And that's where relatability comes into play. Think about Allen Iverson and why he's so important to the culture. The long shorts, the tattoos, the cornrows. Until he did that, nobody felt comfortable being themselves. Think about Jay Z and the things that he did for the music industry. Oh, you don't want to sign me? I'm not good enough. I'll create my own company and then I'll become a billionaire. So, whenever you go against the grain, there's more people on the opposite side that have relatability towards the person than the people that are actually judging it. So, I love everything that Dion and those guys are doing. I love what Rich Paul is doing with Clutch Sports. They're taking that relatability and they're teaching and they're monetizing. And Deion Sanders, he's a few players away from being in the college football playoff. So I hope they continue to do what they do. I just think that there's a time and a place for everything. And when I see guys like Shedeur Sanders and you're at nightclubs before the draft and you didn't come out and train at the combine and all those things, I think that it can be tweaked a little, right? But I think that what they're doing, they're on the right track. Absolutely. And I think we're creating an issue. And I put a quote up that said, quick riches is more dangerous than poverty. And it is, it's true. So you have a lot of these guys, quick riches are more dangerous than poverty. And that goes for NFL players that are 20, 21, 22 years old, NBA, the NIL deal. The Supreme Court is about to rule in the players' favor, where they're going to have $22.5 million to allocate to every team. And I think with that, the leadership has to change. They have to get more people with more wisdom, more life experiences to be able to lead these groups of young men that have come into sudden money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's going to be hard to get them to listen, to focus, and be determined and direct and intentional with their lives and to find purpose. And then that goes like this: some of them go to the NFL, some of them get some NIL. But once you spend all the money and you create this lifestyle and this perception of yourself, it comes crashing down, right? So I think that whenever you start to pay people, you have to have system and processes in place to protect those guys because they're psychologically still immature. So that's how I feel about the NIL. And I think that jumping team to team, yeah, it might be greater. You might get $100,000 here or 75,000 more, but is it the right system? Does this coaching staff actually care about you developing as a human, as a man that possibly won't make a professional sports team? And it's really just the wild, wild west. From covering games with CBS and the tampering with players and skipping teams, you're basically setting the precedent with players. Is okay if things get hard somewhere, or if they're not paying you enough, you can just go to another school and you can start all over. That's not how life works. Sometimes you have to fight through tough things to get to the other side so that you can learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn by going through the fire. So I think that with the NIL, it's like anything else, professional sports. These guys should do the simple thing and just invest in the S&P 500, man. That's it. It's an app on your phone. You can pull up Charles Schwab. You can pull up Fidelity. Open the S&P 500. Put 75% of the money in there, and you're going to make pretty much 10% a year. That's what they have to do. If you spend all the money, you're going to have a lot of problems. But Bryce, I think we have to go back though. A lot of this is pre-programming though. If I come from a demographic and we sit at the dinner table every night and my dad hands me the Wall Street Journal, talks to me about stocks and bonds and what's the benchmark, how's the market doing, what's the annual return. Like if he talked to me about those things, when I get older and I reach adolescence and I get money, I might do the right things with it. But when you come from a demographic and everybody's feeling in scarcity, and you can barely keep the lights on, and you can barely put food on the table, and you have to take the bus, and you don't have private transportation, I don't know if you can actually get quick riches and have success unless somebody comes in like a whirlwind, intercepts your thinking, plants new thoughts into your mind about the market and how things work, and deal with the manipulation and the tactics from NFL owners, agents, financial advisors, guys that manipulate and they talk to you because they know more than you know. But do you know everything I need to be successful? Are you top 1% in your industry? You see what I'm saying? So a lot of the guys in professional sports, and even the college athletes, and all these sharks that's trying to get the guys with the NIL deals, they don't care anything about the players really. They just care about their percentages. They can just manipulate you enough to make you think that you need what they offer, and then when your career ends, they all just run off. So it's a big cycle of BS that we really have to dig into. Absolutely. And then a lot of the guys, they come in with consumerism. They see all these things on TV. They see the current athletes, the Louis Vuitton shoes, 1200, and they think that that's what they have to do to be validated from the crowd. But when you really think about all of these companies and the way that guys spend money, everything that you buy has a ticker in the stock market. Louis Vuitton, LVMH, they have a ticker. They own Moet. They own a bunch of champagne. When you go out, you're giving them your W-2 earned income. The way that the wealthy do it is they invest in those companies. They get a dividend from those companies, and then they go and buy their product with the dividend that you paid me. I didn't use the principal. I didn't use the W-2. So a lot of the guys, why do you think that it's beneficial for the NFL owners to make sure that 80 to 90% of the league, NBA, NFL, is financially literate and living off passive income? Yeah, so when they come in with the financial setup, and we're going to teach you financial literacy and all of that, it's all BS. It's all BS. Their business model could not be sustainable if 90% of the league was living off passive income. And living off passive income is not some magical thing. They all invest the same. They invest about 50% in the public markets, and they have one top 1% managers. So now we talked about the S&P 500, which is the benchmark. That's about 10%. A lot of the owners in the NBA and NFL, they have their own family office where they're looking for 17 to 22% returns. So they're doubling their dividends and passive income every 4.2 years. And that's all they invest in. And then they take out a PAL loan, pledge asset lending. So they'll leverage against their portfolio. They won't liquefy. They still have that in appreciation and value. And then they'll go out and do multi-unit apartment complexes for a low rate. So when Jay-Z says, you want to know what's more important than throwing money in a strip club? Credit. You want to know all the Jewish people in America own all the properties? This is how they did it. It's credit. So you build that public market, that stock investment account up to 10, $15 million, and then you leverage against it for another form of passive income. And once you reach your annual cost with that passive income, you're wealthy. So if my bills are $250,000 a year, and my passive income from multi-unit apartment complexes and real estate and my stocks and my portfolio are generating me $300,000 a year, I'll never spend all the principal. That's the whole key. So everybody wants to make it like it's so complicated. No. All the owners have family offices where they have a private equity wing, a venture capital wing, a public market, and a real estate. And they hire top 1% professionals to generate them the highest returns. If we would just sit down and show the triangle and show all the players this, everybody would be wealthy forever. But this is hidden. So I had to go into the dark. When we talk about mentors and guys and coaches that I've had in college and the NFL, I've had mentors in the financial sector as well. My business partner is one of the biggest mentors. I called him one day. I had a previous financial advisor. I'm thinking I'm doing good. I said, James, my advisor just told me I'm up 7% on my portfolio. What does that mean? He said, nothing. I said, what do you mean, nothing? He said, what's the benchmark? I said, what's a benchmark? He said, well, the benchmark is the S&P 500. It's up 23% right now. Your guy is up 7. Are you doing well? So you see the manipulation that goes into that? S&P 500 is up 23%. You're underperforming by 16 basis points. I'm getting fucked. And then once I heard that and I learned that, I'm like, oh, shit, this is happening to. I feel like I'm an intelligent guy. I've been in the NFL 7, 8 years. If I don't know this, how many of the other guys don't know this?
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
There's a good chance that you're in financial distress, by the way. It should have been generated while you were playing. Your advisor should have been teaching you this, but guess what? He doesn't have the qualities and the information to even teach you this. He's a retail advisor. He takes advice for somebody above him. That's actually, I've known Maverick Carter for about 20 years. Show us your track record. It's all numbers. Are you outperforming the S&P 500, which is free? Show me your track record for 10, 15 years. That's how you analyze advisors. Period. Numbers, not emotions. I don't care if you send me letters and pears and apples on Christmas. I don't care if you pay for fake certification saying that you're top 10 advisor in the country. Show me your numbers. Are you generating over 10% annually or not? Period. That's the number one question that the players should ask all the advisors. Let me see your track record. Are you an active manager or do you just put guys in funds? Bryce, you can go pass a test right now for the Series 65, memorize all the information, but have no experience applying it. And you can go and buy the S&P 500 for somebody and charge them 1%. Does that make you an expert? Does that mean that you have actual Wall Street information? It doesn't. So that's how you do it. Let me see your track record, and then I want to see your ADV report. Your ADV report is not criminal. It's do you have any lawsuits because you've done something against somebody financially? That's on the ADV report. So whenever you go to a financial advisor and you're analyzing these guys, I want to see your track record, I want to see your returns, and I want to see your ADV report. Absolutely. But then when you look at the broad data, Bryce, majority of the NFLPA and the NBA PA has a list of financial advisors that appropriate for the players to work with. When you look at the majority of those, probably close to 95%, they're all retail advisors. Retail advisors, when you look at the mass data over the past year, has only returned 3.8%. Remember, we said the S&P 500 is free, and that's 10%. So you're already losing there. So 95% of retail advisors on average return 3.8%, and then inflation on a normal year without the tariffs is 3%. So now we've only generated 0.8% on my portfolio. Now you have to take your 1% fee. I'm in the negative. When the wealthy families are looking for 17 to 22% returns, Bryce, you see? So it's a lot of manipulation and BS, and you don't learn this until you retire and you want to turn that passive income dividend faucet on, and they like, oh, we don't know how to do that. Absolutely. They're using numbers, and a lot of them use fake credentials. I can pay $10,000 right now to say I'm the number two financial advisor and da 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 da. It'll have a disclaimer at the bottom that a lot of guys don't even click to even read. It says this is not an actual certificate of award or whatever, whatever. So that's what they use. And then a lot of it comes from people you love. High school coaches are selling players to Division I teams. Somebody that you thought had your best interest, now you put money involved. Do they really have your best interest, or does it go to the highest bidder? Is that the right system for you and your family, or did your coach just get a bag? You see? So then when you go to college, it's the same thing. You have agents and financial advisors who are in cahoots. They probably started together. They probably played football at Syracuse together. One became a financial advisor, one became an agent. Just because they're friends and they're sharing the business flow, does that mean that he's a top 1% manager and that can teach you how to develop passive income so that when you retire, you and your family has a positive financial trajectory? I don't think so. So then that's where another part of selling players. And then when you get to The National Football League, now it's just open season. The Sharks come out. You have people selling venture capital. 95% of venture capital fail. So if you're a guy that's in your first contract and you invest in venture capital, you're a fool because 95% of it fails. You're doing it for the perception. And the people that really know finance, they sit back and say, oh, this guy's a fool. I talk about this so much, though, Bryce, because this is an epidemic. This is my demographic, brothers, people that we bleed, sweat, and put so much time in. But then conversely, during retirement, you see guys who can barely feed their family and going through divorce and going through all this financial turmoil when they had it all. And most of the people that was taking percentages off them, they can't even call for $5,000 if they need a loan. That's like that hits you here, especially when you have a network, you have the intelligence to do something about it. It actually hits you right here. That's how I look at draft day now, Bryce. When I'm watching draft day and I see all the people from all of my experiences and I see everybody happy, I don't see them being happy and joyous for that kid and everything that he went through to accomplish one of his dreams. I see everybody feeling like, oh shit, we're all rich. What type of car am I gonna buy? I'm gonna get a house. So that's one of the things that we help with. And we're such an anomaly because I have the experiences and my partner has the actual intel on the investment and all the knowledge when it comes to the financial side. But my side of it is helping guys be able to deal with the families, understanding what it takes to be emotionally intelligent and have to pretty much develop that overnight. Now you're the CEO of your own company. When they start to give you money, now you have to know that even your closest family members and friends, they want a piece. And a lot of times they will make you buy their love. You have to be strong enough to understand what's right. Is what is what best for me to invest the way that I have to now for the first 5 to 7 years, and I be able to give people money with passive income, or is it for me to emotionally cave in because I don't know how to be alone, and for so long I feel guilty because I feel like I have to bring everybody with me. So that's one of the biggest issues that hinders financial prosperity. But then you have to have self-love. Self-love is really understanding what's best for you individually and then doing the hard things that will get you to your ultimate destination. And a lot of times it's getting rid of the overstimulation, people, places, things, distraction. And then you have to gauge somebody for where they are in their life. If you, well, myself and another person, and we're going on an equal terrain, we can meet at the summit. But if you're going down and I'm going up, you're just extra baggage for me. So that's how I look at it. So, and that could be mother, father, that could be uncle, grandmother, grandfathers, anybody that don't truly align with where you see yourself going in your life. You might have to distance yourself or get away from them totally. So that's just one of the parts about growth in life. At some point, if you want to go to the next level, you're going to have to let things go. You're going to have to go through an uncomfortable phase. You might go through some isolation, but on the other side of that, while you were being pruned, like I like to call it, God likes to prune you in the isolation periods. That's when you take off. But you have to go through that period of isolation so that you can see from amongst the trees. Hmm. Well, you have to know the data. And when you go back to what, 1886, ever since 1886, when the stock market was invented, we've had volatility. Volatility means it goes up and down. Total loss means that the market crashed, America is nothing, we're Iraq, China is attacking us, the stock market is over. It's never crashed in history. So when we talk about volatility, when you talk about the thinking behind, oh, the market is down, oh, everything, we're losing everything, should we sell? A lot of the wealthy people are putting more money into the market to get the discount. So a year from now, they made 60% on their money. So that's the difference. Volatility is up and down. Absolute loss has never happened. So that's how we talk to people about risk. A lot of advisors will try to scare these guys. Oh, what if the market crashes? Buddy, the market has never crashed in the history of the stock market. We had some volatility, we had some bad years, but those are the years when the people liquidated houses and HELOCs and put money in the market and made 60% on their money. So when coronavirus happened and the market crash of real estate before that, they always say that the rich get richer, the wealthier get wealthier. A lot of those people made the billions while everybody else freaked out and got scared. So that's what we talk about when it comes to risk and volatility. It has never crashed permanently in the history of civilization. Well, you're not going to have a financial portfolio similar to Shaq, mainly because Shaq has scale. So if you go buy one burger joint, you might make $25,000 a year on a good year. You don't have, to chase employees around and, remodel and do all of this overhead. So number one thing we tell guys is if you're going to do real estate, if you're going to do franchising, it's no different from the pledge asset lending. You lend against your portfolio and you do it on a massive scale. But first off, you have to have a system. You have to have top 1% people that have been in that industry for 15, 20 years that are helping mentor you and lead the way. There's nobody that's going to be a full-time athlete and then within 2 years you're going and building houses from the ground and developments. It doesn't happen that way. First of all, you have to have a network of top 1% of professionals around you that you can trust. Not your uncle, not your brother, not somebody with a startup, somebody with a proven track record. And then when you think about passive income, there's only three ways to develop passive income really in the world and get wealthy. It's the public markets and companies like Nike, Sherwin-Williams, McCormick Spices. They'll pay a hefty dividend however you want it. Every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, every year, they pay a dividend. And the second way is apartment complexes, real estate. You leverage against your portfolio, you develop passive income that way. You can do that with franchising as well. It's the same thing. It's the same as commercial real estate. And then the third thing is businesses. You own a business, you buy a business, you buy multiple businesses, you get passive income from those businesses. But there's no other ways to develop passive income. Those are the only three ways. So venture capital doesn't pay you passive income. They hold your money for 9, 15 years. If you invest in a restaurant, 90+% of restaurants and private equity, they go bankrupt. 4%, 4% of the companies that's ever been in the stock market makes up 100% of the returns. Think about that. 4% of the companies in the stock market makes up 100% of the returns all time. So with these little like data points, if guys knew these data points, when somebody approached you and said, "Hey man, that's in my venture company," you knew that 95% of the venture companies who went broke or startups failed, would you gamble your money? When you don't know the data and you're preying on your emotions and your ignorance, that's when you might invest. No, that's a place where you have the S&P 500 that has about 50% of your portfolio. You have a top 1% manager that's generating you top 1% returns, generating alpha over the S&P 500, which is 10%. Alpha means just the excess above 10%. So you get those guys, and then you get to a place where, okay, Bryce, your bills are $500,000 a year, but you're generating 600,000. Let's take 50 of that extra 100,000 and put it in venture capital and play with it. The wealthy look at it like play money. Once you generate alpha over what your fixed cost is, you can you can invest in private equity. You can invest in venture capital, but not before you have your base and your foundation met. If you don't meet your number with passive income, how can you go and take that money and put it in venture capital? When I just said 95% fail. So you have to earn your way to invest in venture and private equity. Mhm. Yeah, you get that feel, but then people like to use examples like Facebook. Oh, if you would have invested 10,000 in Facebook, you would have $6 billion. Well, you wouldn't have had the access. There were only certain people that had the access to Facebook in Silicon Valley at the time. There were only certain groups of friends that were supposed to be involved in that group. And then how many other companies like Facebook that people invested in lost everything? Facebook is one company. What about the countless others that lost all the money? So that's how we look at it. So when you're looking at Bitcoin and all those different things, how many other cryptocurrencies failed? Bitcoin was just the one that took off. What about the others that failed and everybody lost everything? So a lot of those people that move on emotion or what other people do and they're not really educated and informed, those are the people that really lose. Those are the people that get preyed upon. Like similarly to the athletes, they get preyed upon. So the first thing you can do is self-educate. And then you can try to find a network or mentors that actually know what they're doing, but you don't want to be a sheep and just moving the way that everybody else moves because even if you look at the data with everybody else, Bryce, and I'm going to keep referring back to that, 1% of the U.S. population control over 80% of the assets. About 85%, I believe. 1% of the people control 85% of the assets. How many people actually know? 5% of the people in the US control 95% of the assets. How many people actually know? If you're following the people that you think, you're probably losing.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyan Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyan is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag, or even an overnighter. Kinyan's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyan.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
I'm not sure if they have information that we don't have access to because I guarantee you the same way that I just explained the investment tactics and strategies is the same way that a lot of the billionaires and Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio, and I can go down the line, they all invest the same. So if there's anything, this information I gave was secret information because this is all the information they use. As far as getting payments under the table and the dark money, that's been going on for eons. That'll never come out. Right? It's not just Trump. It's pretty much everybody. Which is why a lot of these politicians want to be in power is so that they can grease their pockets, so they can control people, so they can control and create laws. So when it comes to politics, it's like any other industry. What we see on the media is just surface level. There's so much that's in the media that will never get out. And I'm a big Tupac fan, right? So you go through Tupac music, he's been explaining this since the 90s, right? Crooked politicians, the laws, the systematic racism. We know how that happens. So I don't think either side is fairly good, in my opinion. I think Democrats and Republicans is all the same. It's more so just a way to manipulate to gain the mass vote so that you can get in the office and everybody agrees them pockets. So I don't really get into it a lot. Well, it's my purpose because when you look back and you think about, well, I think about everything that I had to go through to get to where I eventually got to was the National Football League for 11 years and going on to make three Pro Bowls. It took a lot of trial and error. And when I watch a lot of the young players, NFL players specifically, I really see myself. The jewelry, right? The egotism, the loudness, the aggressiveness, filled with testosterone. And I really sit and think like, you really needed some stillness in your life. You really needed to sit down and comprehend things on a very deep level. And if not, your life can go into a disastrous direction. And it's very easy for these things to happen. Because, for example, the habits that you pick up that make you a great football player and the characteristics don't naturally make you a great human in society. The way that you show your confidence, the egotism, coming from a locker room where majority of the guys come from a certain demographic, and that demographic is really tough, right? African Americans coming from the inner city, you might have the best athletes from Chicago and Cleveland and Washington D.C., and you take them and put them in this little cubicle. So every day you're in competition with each other over women, cars, and jewelry, and performance on the field, and who gets paid the most. And it actually turns you into something similar to a prison cell. You got guys that are just loud and aggressive, and it's hard to really take a step back and understand where you are and who you've become to be able to conquer that world. So then when you retire, you have to be a totally different person than what made you the king of the jungle in that locker room. Absolutely. And a lot of the guys, they're just reenacting what they saw growing up in the inner city. The people that stood on the corner, the drug boys, the guys that had the nice cars, the nice chains, the clothes, the girls. A lot of it is pre programming. So before you can become a great person in society, a great doctor, a lawyer, football player, financial advisor, be good with your finances, you have to identify what your habits are, what your pre programming is, identify why you do what you do, and then take steps to eradicating all of those things. For example, if you're a guy that grew up in a household where your grandfather and uncle drank every day, and they gave you your first drink at 18, and you would sit down and have conversations with them, and they told you that the way that you operate with women is you want to have more women than you can know what to do with, that makes you a man, and you have to go out and associate drinking with having a good time. Eventually those things could cause destruction and disaster in your life. Not being able to be with one woman, understanding your pre-programming told you that you don't feel self-worth unless you have 10, 15 women, and unless you drink alcohol, and unless you do a variety of different things. And that can lead on till you're 50, 60 years old. So it's the pre-programming that you get from those early developmental days that linger on when you're a grown man. So you have to actually go and heal that inner child so that you can move forward and grow progressively. Well, because I had a lot of turmoil, going on. And then naturally, spiritually, I started to connect with chanting, deep meditation, transcendental meditation, hot yoga, sitting in silence, being comfortable being by myself, and that's when you can hear the messages. So it started with that. It started with the loss of identity from the NFL and then trying to figure out, okay, who am I? Not what have I accomplished, not where I'm from, not my name, but who am I? What makes me feel good? What do I like to do? Where do I like to go? What do I like to wear? How do I like to feel? What makes me feel this way? So, knowing myself first, that's where it came from. And then when you sit back and you have time to contemplate and think about these things, you're like, oh shit, that's why I do that. My mother always forgot me eating a cheeseburger and with 8 boys there. She always put ketchup and mustard on my cheeseburger. That's why I felt alone and left out and forgotten. But she didn't mean it. She was just coming home from work and it was late and she knew she had 8 mouths to feed. She didn't remember to get one of the burgers special. So you see that inner child there that felt neglected and felt like, oh, you don't care about me. But it's not that. It's a totally different scenario. That's just one situation. Well, it's ongoing. You never get there to where you're like fully healed, but this is a part of healing. The NFL pushes you so far out there with who you have to become, the psychology behind it, the I don't give a fuckness to be able to go out there and put your body on the line, knowing that, hey, I could break my neck today and I'll never be able to walk. Or I could break my leg today or blow my knee out and I have to deal with that. Right? So that person that you have to be great on that level, you have to come down from that. And there are certain ways to do it. So a lot of the guys that I see and I feel for, like guys that get a lot of the DUIs and all those things, I know exactly what they're going through. They're going through a loss of identity, and the only way that they know how to cope with that, and the only way that they've seen their families cope with it, was to drink, to party, to hang out and be overstimulated, to be around a lot of people so that you can hide those insecurities because you don't want to sit alone and actually feel the pain. It's pre-programming. You've seen your mother struggle with bills. You've seen her just throw them in a drawer, forget them. Everything when you grow up is dealing in scarcity mode. It's the immediate. It's right now. It's not future planning. You don't have the systems and the network and intelligence around you to actually build these systems and processes. And again, pre-programming can hurt you financially, spiritually, psychologically, physically. It's what you've seen and witnessed and went through early in your life that sets it up for the later stages. So it's the first step of self-love, Bryce. It's getting in the gym, doing the things that's hard so that when you look in the mirror, you can say, I like what I see. If you don't look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, it's hard to manifest or to be joyous or happy or go out and complete anything. That's where depression comes from. You look in that mirror and you're like, oh man, I look old and fat. That's where it comes from. So a lot of times, and they say athletes have a part of their brain that gets developed more by doing things that they don't actually want to do. So, for example, when I wake up at 3:45 in the morning, 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and I like to walk into the gym at 5 in the morning, how many people do you think actually sacrifice that sleep to still be tired and sore and actually do that consistently? There's a part of your brain and a part of your essence that takes that in, right? So when hard things come in any aspect of life, you can actually fight through those things, and you actually know like, hey, I'm hard enough to get through this. So that's the number one thing. And then another thing is you have to know that the human body is the most amazing creation ever. And when you think about the things that the human body can do, for example, if you fast for up to 72 hours, you'll go into autophagy, where all the sick cells and dementia cells and all these different things floating around your body, the body will start to eat these things. The excess fat that's all around your body, the body will start to eat these things. But how many of us are disciplined enough to ever take 24, 48, or 72 hours off from eating? That's the number one thing that's getting people sick. Is all the processed food. If you take 72 hours off, you have coffee and water only, your body will start to regenerate all of those natural functions. So I've always been a guy that's been big on, knowing what to do to be able to have longevity. And that's one of the things. So training to me, I tell my lady all the time, I tell her, I say, man, I'm so excited to get back to the gym tomorrow. She thinks I'm crazy. And we could be sitting here at 4:30 p.m. and I'm going to the gym the next morning at 5 a.m. and I'm sitting here thinking about how good it feels to be consistent and how I feel when I look at myself in the mirror. That's how I look at it. And it's funny that you said that because I can look at people now. I can look at former athletes. I can look at current athletes. I can tell what your lifestyle is. I can look at your eyes and the color of your eyes and your nails and length and the color and your skin. And I can tell if you live a certain lifestyle or not. It's very freaky. It was actually proving to myself first and foremost, and then proving to other people that I could do things that I said I was going to do. That's where my hunger came from. So it was never money. It was never, oh, I want to be famous. I never gave a shit about fame. It was, hey, if I actually put my mind to this and do it for a long time, what can happen? And do I believe it? And then when you start to see it come to fruition, that's where the joy is. It's not in getting the money and go buy a big house, buy a million cars. It's like I actually did something that only 0.0000001% of people get to do when all the odds were against me. So what else can I do? And all the dudes laughing at me. Yeah, all of that stuff. We're going top 10 as a safety, which was like unheard of. You see, I'm playing 11 years with zero injuries and zero surgery. So it's like that's the most gratifying thing to me in the world is okay, this is something that looks like it can't be accomplished. Everybody says it can't be accomplished, and then you do it. So that's what keeps me hungry. So and I'm gonna go right into it. So my thing that I want to accomplish now is I want to make sure that 90% of the professional sports league have this sports league players have this information to be able to apply it so that everybody's financially literate. People look at me and say, "What are you talking to a different demographic? That's impossible." I don't think it's impossible. So that's my ultimate goal right now is to use this information and this knowledge and the network that I have of top 1% professionals to actually be able to penetrate the thinking of guys that come from a certain demographic who people deem as just a lost cause. He's going to lose it all anyway. We might as well take as much as we can from him now before he loses it all. Take those guys, add sophistication, and increase their learning curve like this. Not like this, not like this, like that. And I appreciate that. And the number one thing is I want to be a pioneer and a radical. For to be a pioneer and a radical, you have to go against the grain. You have to be the black sheep. You have to be humiliated. You go through a humiliation phase where everybody laughs and then eventually like, oh, what's going on? And then they copy. So the people that become pioneers and radicals, Nipsey Hussle, everybody in the hood telling him that he'll never be a rapper. He want to get away from the streets. Voila, it happens. And it goes back to Napoleon Hill. And you spoke about it earlier, that there's dips in life, right? A lot of the people that come out of that dip and go and have massive success, they look at that dip as a short-term setback. It's not a finality to what they're going through because when you look at and research Napoleon Hill, he says every failure has an equivalent seed of the equivalent advantage, which means that when you go through something hard in your life or you get cut from a team, whatever, if you wallow in it enough, and you really think about it and focus on it, what is your seed that you can take out of that to go be successful with? Majority of people look at things as a final failure. Henry Ford and all of these guys, the guy from KFC and what's her name? Did Harry Potter and Steve Harvey and Lady Gaga. There's a correlation with all these stories, and then there's a correlation that goes back to the Bible. When you got David and Goliath, you had to deal with faith, right? Against these extreme circumstances. When you got Job, when you got all of Moses and parting of the Red Sea and being chased by the Egyptians. Like there's a correlation between all these stories. Elon Musk being down to his last two rockets before he hit off with Starlink and all these different things. Everybody has to go through that phase when you have greatness on the other side. You have to. Absolutely. The weekend was homeless before he became the biggest pop star in the world. There's a story. Yeah. So when you look at these stories and you correlate them with the Bible and you correlate them, this is what it means to study the greats. Don't study what they actually did step by step. You want to study the longevity of their journey, the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, how they bounced back, and how they moved on to prosper. What helped me was a conversation that I had with Jim Tressel, who was my college coach. And I don't even know if he knows right now that this still sticks in my brain almost every day, but he was like, Whitner, I want to tell you, you got a bright future. You're going to get drafted high. And I want to tell you one thing that I want you to always remember. He said, if you allow the game to become who you are, you'll struggle when you're done with it. He said, if you just use the game and it's something that you do, you'll be okay when you retire. And that stuck with me. And what he was really saying is so many times we get caught up in the overstimulation and fanfare and fame and girls and all this different stuff to where if you connect with those things and you actually feel like that's you, you're gonna struggle. If you do it for the right intention, you do it for the love of the game, you play the game to play hard, you play the game to be remembered, you play the game to win, you play the game to make money to feed your family, you play the game to invest. When you retire, you'll be okay. But when you do it for the wrong things and you fall into this fantasy trap and world that I'm special, well, I can tell you right now that guys that are even making 20, $30 million a year, you're not that special. You can just run fast, you can tackle well, or you can shoot a basketball. But what else have you accomplished? What other skills do you have that can translate to the real world? Do you have any other skills? Which is why you see so many athletes are so confident and they got this fake bravado. And then as soon as they retire, the confidence is gone. It's almost like a stain on their shirt that you can just wipe off. It's not really who they are. So I just always remember what Coach Trust said, and I just always wanted to remain myself. I didn't want to do things for outside circumstances or stimuli, fame. So yeah, that's how I was able to deal with it. Thank you, Bryce. Thanks for having me. We got to do this again real soon. They can find me on X, Donte Whitner, and then on Instagram, I'm Donte Hitner 39. I've transitioned out of the Hitner. I'm trying to get that changed, but we'll just keep that there for now. But yeah, you can catch me there. We actually have a nice article coming out with Sports Illustrated showing what we do, the athletes that we work with, what we're helping them do. We're helping them replace their NFL and NBA paychecks, W 2, and put the money to work so that when they retire, they can live off passive income. That's what we do in that show. My partner, James Lethard, he's a 15-year Wall Street veteran. He left, created his own family office, Kirtland Hills Capital, and that's where I partnered up with him at Kirtland Hills Capital, so that we have a specific demographic of guys in professional sports that we really just want to give all of this information to because for so long, guys have really been taken advantage of. And there's a lot of lost greatness just based on guys trusting people that they thought had the information to make them successful. No, no last or final thoughts, but this is the information that I'm very passionate about. Just I feel the same that I felt about the NFL that I feel about this lane here. And it's been tough. You know, sometimes guys aren't ready to receive the information, and then that can be their downfall. Remember, we only have about, on average, 2.7 years. And a lot of times you have to get that money working 4, 5, 6 years before you can actually start to generate the type of passive income. So it's very difficult knowing that I have the right information, but some guys aren't prepared to receive it. Absolutely. That's the number one thing, Bryce. Don't take things personal. Thank you, brother. Look forward to getting on soon.